Hi, I'm Leonard Garrison. I teach flute at the University of Idaho, and one of the elements of the All Northwest audition material on flute is page 5 of Bach's Selected Studies. It's the Bourrée anglaise by Bach. So I'm going to play that for you first of all, and then we'll discuss it. The first thing I'd like to say about this piece is that it's such a pleasure to play music written for the flute by one of the greatest composers, Bach. And in order to play this one well, you should be familiar with the style of Bach. So I would suggest listening to many flute recordings of Bach's music, but also other pieces by Bach, so that you can hear how great violinists play Bach and how great singers sing Bach, and so on, to become very familiar with his style. Now, a Bourrée anglaise is a country dance from England. Anglaise means English. And so we should play this with a lot of happiness. Voxman in his edition says rapidly and joyfully. And make people feel like they want to dance with you. Now the secret to this dance is getting a good resonant staccato. And so a good exercise for this, the staccato really should come from the air instead of the tongue. And so a great exercise is doing a staccato without the tongue at all. This is only an exercise, but it helps you play the piece. So I'm going to take an A, and I'm going to play some staccato eighth notes without the tongue, just and to get a good big sound doing this. When you do that, it's hard to center the tone, but concentrate on getting a focused embouchure and controlling your airspeed. Now, put the tongue in, but don't use what I call king tut. The Egyptians had king tut, but what I'm referring to is if you close off the end of the staccato with the tongue, it's going to make a real ugly sound. If I say tut, 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 it sounds like this. So that's too much tongue. You want, the syllable I use is da or do with a D, and make sure you end each thing with a vowel, each staccato note. Then you can apply it to the piece. So every staccato note should end with a vowel and have this open end sound. And more staccato notes later on, rather than the king tut version. So you hear the difference. It's if we use tut, it makes a kind of an ugly sound to it. If we use do or da, it makes a more beautiful staccato. Okay. Now, another thing about Bach's style is that we emphasize notes on the beat, and we come away the notes that aren't on the beat. So this figure at the beginning of the piece goes all the way through the piece, and you should make a little diminuendo. And later on when you have practicing a diminuendo within the beat is a very beautiful effect. Okay. Now, one thing that I find that's very difficult about this piece is those low E's in measure 3 and 4, this passage. So one exercise you can do is just slur an octave E. go from a low E to a middle E, there's no change in fingering, but the airspeed is faster in the middle E than it is on the low E. Also, we have a finer focus the higher you go on the flute. So you have to take your lips and bring them a little closer together. Another thing you can do is go from low to high. You push your lips forward a little bit. So those three things, the airspeed, increasing the airspeed to go up an octave, and making a smaller opening, and pushing the lips a little bit forward. Let me try this for you again, just slurring from low to middle E. So you should do a lot of that kind of preparatory study before you play this piece. Now, let's put that in a rhythm and go like this. So that you can do it more quickly. Okay. Now, let's try the first line of this piece and incorporate what we learned about the embouchure. Then we get to, this is very common in Baroque music, we have two measures of forte arpeggios, and then there's an echo. So you want to emphasize this difference as much as possible. Practice playing the forte, and one thing that tends to happen in a forte is you go sharp. So to prevent that from happening, try to angle the air down into the flute and put lots of air low and drop your jaw so that the air goes low into the flute. And then for the piano, the opposite is true. I bring my lower lip forward so that the air goes more above the flute, and I'm kind of skimming the surface, and that'll pick up the intonation so that it doesn't go flat. One good exercise before you play all those notes is just simply to play the main notes, which are E and D, forte, and then piano. See if you can make an echo on just the main notes. And do that over and over until you're convinced that you can make a good echo. Then put all of those 16th notes in that. Now, if you have real sharp ears, you might notice that I play one note that's different than what is published in the book, because it's a wrong note in the book. So in your second line, in 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth measure of the second line, that's the last measure of the piano. The last note should be G instead of F. Bach wrote it that way, and I believe you should play it that way, even though the book says there's an F there. There's that one wrong note in there. Okay, after this echo, again, the dynamics are really important. So you need to make an overall crescendo and get very excited going up to your high C and B. Notice that I didn't breathe after the high C at the top of the crescendo, because what I love is to take that note and resolve it into the B. That's the most exciting part of the piece.